Action. Please tell us where and when you were born and about your youth.
I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. I pronounce Louisville, Kentucky, not Louisville or Louisville or some of the other variations. And I grew up there in the east end of town. My dad worked for a Greyhound Corporation. In fact, ultimately, he worked his way up to be manager of the Greyhound bus station in Louisville, down at 5th and Broadway. I went to public schools, grade school or elementary school up in the Highlands, and junior high school. And then I went to a downtown manual training school for boys. There were two, coeducation had not yet come to Louisville when I was in high school. And there were two big major boys' high schools downtown, sort of the college prep school and the manual training school. And I went to the manual training school, not necessarily because it was the best thing for me, but mainly because my dad had gone there and graduated from there. And it was one of those sort of loyalty things. People tended to go to the same school and the same families. And then when I graduated from school, I really was pretty disgusted with public school education. I hated high school. And an aunt of mine talked me into trying out college. I was not going to go to college because I hated high school so much. But an aunt of mine said, give it a semester, give it a year, and see how you like it. And so I did. I went to the University of Louisville, and the first class I walked into was an English class in an old Victorian building that was on campus. And I was waiting for class, and there was another kid sitting on the desk. And I kind of wondered, why is this kid sitting on the desk? But anyway, we were all chattering and the different kids talking to each other. And then finally the bell rang and it was time to start the class. And the teacher hadn't shown up yet. But then this kid who was sitting up on the desk got up and started talking. It turned out he was the teacher. I thought he was about 20 years old, and he probably was every bit of maybe 28 or 29. But when he started talking, he impressed me so much. He was so intelligent, and what he was saying was just so bright and so relevant that I could hardly believe that this was like school. It was so interesting. And to make a long story short, I was hooked in a very short time, and I wound up being I think I was the second in the class of about 250 when we graduated. I was not the valedictorian. A gal named Peggy Mull was the valedictorian, but I think he called it the salutatorian. I was the second in the class. So I'd done really very well in college, and most of the way through college, even though we were definitely from a lower middle class family, I was able to win scholarships, and then I worked nights at the Greyhound bus station. Dad got me a job slinging baggage and so on, and that kept me in school all the way through college.
Did you draw and paint quite a bit as a kid?
I did. In fact, I had been very interested in drawing and painting ever since I was a little kid, even in grade school. I was drawing, airplanes. This was World War II. I was drawing airplanes all over the margins of my notebooks and getting in a lot of trouble with the teachers for drawing that kind of stuff, and drawing all the time instead of maybe doing as the exact homework assignments that they wanted. It was just something the kids did then, and I was certainly one of them. Later on, when I got more into math, and I was always very interested in math, and I got into college math, I began to realize that airplane design wasn't for me. I really wanted to be an airplane designer, but it was too limiting. You didn't have enough freedom to design. It was all pretty much done in a wind tunnel and then, in math equations. And in the meantime, I had become intensely interested in automobiles. By the time I was in high school, I was really a car freak. I loved cars and drew them all the time. And
did other family members share your interest, or others draw or paint as much as you did?
No, not really. I had an aunt who lived up in Lexington, Kentucky, 70 or 80 miles from us, who was an amateur painter, but no one else in the family either drew or painted. But by the time I was 12, I would say, I probably drew as well as I did today, and as I do today. And the reason for that was because the city of Louisville had a very progressive art program in the grade schools and later on in junior high schools. There was a family in Louisville, a very wealthy family named the Bottos, B-O-T-T-O, who set up prizes and scholarships for kids, even at the grade school level. So I think in the 5th or 6th grade, I won a citywide Botto contest with my drawing, and I was able to take Saturday afternoon classes that were connected with the University of Louisville, and that was enormous help because here I was, a little let's see, I would have been say 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old, and I was in classes with college kids, and of course they thought of me as kind of a mascot. They would show me tricks of how to handle a pencil or how to draw something in perspective and so on that that other children my age certainly were not privy to, because I had these wonderful special Saturday afternoon classes, and my dad used to take me out there and pick me up, and it was just great to have this extra teaching. By the time I got through college, I figured I had the equivalent of about 7 or 8 years of life drawing classes, for instance. So I could draw figures very well, and of course it becomes embedded in your whole persona, for your whole life. If you can do that, you can just do it. It becomes natural. You forget about the fact that you had to work awfully hard to learn how to do it, because it just becomes so easy for you.
It's intuitive.
Intuitive is the right word. Yeah, that's the word it's a good word for it. It's just second nature.
So tell us a little bit about where you studied design.
Well, by the time I was toward the end of my college years, I was a student assistant for an architectural historian named Walter Crease, who later became quite famous in his field. He was a friend of Frank Lloyd Wright's and just a remarkable guy, and I was sort of the student assistant. And he knew that I was very interested in automobile design, and he thought that I should study with Buckminster Fuller, who at that time was becoming quite well known and was enormously popular particularly among college students and professors, as a kind of a very scholarly guy and a super inventor. And Buckminster Fuller was teaching at that time at Black Mountain College in North Carolina. And just about the time I graduated, Dr. Crease suggested that I contact Fuller, and I think I did contact the college about studying there, but at that time the Korean War was going on, and I got drafted into the Army. While I was in the Army, I was stationed over at Fort Eustis, Virginia. I never actually went to Korea, although I was stationed in the Army. I was in the Army for most of the time till the duration of the war. I think the war ended while I was in the Army. Why, I entered a contest, a card drawing contest. I think it was, or card design contest, I should say. I think it was in a magazine called Car Life magazine, and I'm sure it's no longer in existence. But I won second prize nationally, which turned out to be a King Midget, a little tiny sort of a mini Jeep-like car built in Athens, Ohio.
That was the prize?
And that was the first prize, or second prize, excuse me.
Second prize.
And I won that prize. And so I got this little King Midget. I on a leave back to my hometown of Louisville, my dad, my brother and I went down to the train station. It came in a big crate, just like about the size of a refrigerator box, or I guess a little bigger even than that. And we unloaded this crate from the train, and I took the crate all apart, and then I was going to drive the car back to my home in the east end of Louisville. But there was a very long, steep hill between downtown Louisville and the east end, and this little King Midget, there was no way that little King Midget was going to make it up that hill. So my dad and my brother pushed me up that hill. That's no wonder they both didn't have heart attacks, because it was like 6 blocks long, I guess, this hill. And it just went on forever and ever.
It was a small car.
It was a small car, and I was pretty skinny too. I think I probably weighed about 115 then. And
when did you first start drawing cars, though, as far as your interest in designing or drawing cars?
Well, I was drawing cars pretty intensely in college.
In college.
And I think maybe even as early as high school. last couple of years of high school. But my interest in airplanes was very intense, and I drew probably more airplanes, certainly at first, and then gradually switched over to cars. I remember one of my airplane designs, or one of my airplane drawings, it was actually a World War II, a couple of World War II fighter planes in a combat. You know, kids always draw fighter planes shooting at each other. I did that drawing, I think it was in the 5th grade, because it was published in the local newspaper. You know, they had a couple of drawings from kids who had won this Bato contest. And one of my airplane drawings was, and I remember I had the sun peeping out from behind a cloud in this drawing, and they said that it looked like, the newspaper person said it looked like a fried egg with this sort of puffy white cloud with the sun, orange sun coming up behind it. I didn't think it looked like a fried egg at all, but, you know, kids have ideas. Is that enough? Yeah, that's fine.